This week on Diabetes Connections, Tandem Diabetes made some big announcements at the recent ADA conference. We're going behind the headlines and asking your questions about software updates, extended wear infusion sets, what's happening with the patch pump, and a lot more. I'm talking to Ben Marr, the Director of Product Marketing. We're also getting into their expanded partnership with Abbott. They're one of the pump companies that has signed on for the future glucose ketone sensor. There's a lot to talk about here. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Welcome to another week of Diabetes Connections. I'm your host, Stacey Sims, and we aim to educate and inspire about diabetes with a focus on people who use insulin. It is July. I know every year it seems like time goes faster and faster, but this summer is flying by, and summer is always a very busy time, not just for family vacations and fun stuff, but for diabetes conferences. ADA in June, Children with Diabetes in July, and ADCES for diabetes educators in August. Never a dull moment. I am going to be at Children with Diabetes, Friends for Life, next week. Shouldn't see any interruptions in episodes, but I'll post on social media if anything different happens or if anything exciting happens at that conference. That's really a fun one. It's not so much about new studies like ADA is, but it's about connection. It is the largest family conference for diabetes. And sometimes you do run into celebrities or people that I've really wanted to talk to for a long time. So I'm keeping an eye out for that, and I'll be bringing you some fun interviews in the weeks to come. I need to let you know that early bird specials are ending soon for our fall Mom's Night Out events. The Minneapolis early bird special ends this Sunday, July 6th. The early bird special for Phoenix ends August 3rd. We have announced the cities for next year. You can find out all of the information over at diabetes-connections.com. Those cities for next year are Nashville, DC, Detroit, and Seattle. And head over to the Mom's Night Out page to sign up for city-specific emails and announcements. I'm already hearing from friends in those cities who are really excited to help us get the word out. We have a lot of fun at these conferences, and I'd love to hear from you if you want to take part in one. If you need more information, shoot me an email. Let me know what you're thinking. We've got the Facebook group, Diabetes Connections, the group. You can always post in there. We are all systems go. What'll be year 4 for Mom's Night Out? All right, let's talk Tandem. Disclaimer, my son has used this system for at least the last 10 years. And Tandem is a supporter of Mom's Night Out, but I pay for all of Benny's pump supplies. We don't get anything for free, and they don't tell me what to say or what to ask. Ben Marr is the Director of Product Marketing for Tandem. And if you want to do a deeper dive into the product line, or especially the Mobi features, I would urge you to listen to our previous conversations with Ben, and I will link those up in the show notes here. Ben had a lot to say. I'm telling you, he is sincere about wanting to answer as many of your questions as he can. And our conversation is right after this. I'm so excited that the Dexcom G7 is here. I know you probably have a lot of questions about insurance. You're not alone. Dexcom understands how complicated this can seem, and they've made it as simple as possible. Dexcom is the #1 covered CGM brand. You can visit the Dexcom Savings Center for a free benefits check to see what coverage options are available to you. Powerful and simple, Dexcom G7 is proven to lower A1C and help you spend more time in range. Learn more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. Ben Marr, welcome back to Diabetes Connections. I'm sure you're pretty exhausted. We're talking to you right as ADA is ending. How was the conference for you guys?
It was really great. It was exciting. You're right. It's long and tiring, but it's always fun being able to be there and talk to everyone that's so passionate about diabetes. It's the world's biggest diabetes conference, as I discovered. There's over 10,000 people that come there, and we were really excited to be there and present there. Recently, just back in March, we announced our publication in the New England Journal of Medicine about our type 2 results, which was a randomized multi-center trial, which is essentially the most robust form of clinical trial that was studied on people with type 2 diabetes and Control-IQ plus technology. So we were there, we were able to share those results at one of our product theaters. And the summary of it is the results were really, really good, very similar to what we've seen in our studies of people with type 1 diabetes. And the net of that is Control-IQ works really, really well for people with diabetes and shows great improvement. And then also the most exciting thing that we're also able to share there is a bit more of a deeper dive in some of the strategies people use with the system overall. In particular, we saw that people took different strategies in terms of how they bolused, from whether they used carb counting, which is sort of the normal way that people use the system. But also we saw people sort of simplified their bolus strategies. For example, they just used preset boluses. No matter what type of meal they were using, they just used the same set, which sort of simplified their work that they had to do, but that it also saw great improvement overall. So the summary of that is with Control IQ, it really meets people where they are. And no matter what type of diabetes you have, no what age, gender, it really shows an improvement overall, especially for those who need it the most.
I have a laundry list of questions, as you can imagine, but I need to dig a little deeper into what you just said there. First of all, when you're talking about people who bolus those two ways, was that people with all types of diabetes or just people with type 2?
So this study was particular with people with type 2 diabetes that we were looking at. The system is indicated for regularly delivering a bolus to manage your meals. And we've generally recommended carb counting because the algorithm actually performs best. But we know that some people, it's a challenge for some people to do that accurately and appropriately. So we saw that people use different strategies, however, to sort of give themselves extra insulin, but also continue to see the improvement and the outcomes that they get with Control IQ.
Yeah, but I'm just, I'm confused as someone who hasn't looked at an insulin pump closely in a long time because my son is 20 and he does it all by himself. But when you say set boluses, is this a feature in the pump? Is this something that people are just saying on their own, that meal, I'm giving myself 6 units for every meal, or how does that work?
Yeah, in this particular study, it was them just saying, I'm going to give myself 8 units or 6 units. No matter what the meal type is, I'm just going to give myself 6 units of insulin just to cover that increase. And like I said, they saw great results with that as well.
So interesting. All right, that'll be another conversation for another time in terms of the exactness of carb counting and how we all know that it's not an exact science.
Yes.
Very interesting stuff. Okay, let's talk about other news from ADA, that the Tandem will partner with Libre or Abbott.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, correct. So we announced just at the beginning of ADA, our integration with the t:slim X2 pump with the Libre 3, the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor. So we initiated our early access in that. For us, we've integrated with the Freestyle Libre 2 Plus previously, but for us now with the t:slim X2, we're integrated with Abbott's sort of flagship latest sensor, and as well as that, we're also integrated with Dexcom's G6 and Dexcom's G7. So really, now anyone who wants to use a t:slim X2 pump can use 3 of the leading sensors that are out there on the market and get the benefits of our pump with Control IQ Plus.
Okay, so then the next question everybody's going to have is, what about Mobi?
Yep, that was the next question that we got at ADA. So our plans, like I said, we've initiated an early access. So there are a lot of different moving parts and technical pieces to these integrations. It's not just about the CGM sensor and the pump itself working together. It's everything around that, especially with our ecosystem. We make it available to via a software update, so you don't need an extra piece of hardware. So we are rolling it out in a scaled fashion. We're doing it initially here in the US. We'll make it available to every t:slim X2 user with an in-warranty pump later on. And then we'll also be rolling it out internationally because this system, we're available in 26 countries. We'll be rolling that one out. And then immediately after that, we're going to be moving on to Mobi as well. And then we're expecting that to be available in the first half of 2026.
Excellent. I don't know if you can speak to this, but it's so interesting to watch companies partnering with Abbott on their future sensor that will incorporate ketone and glucose sensing. Tandem is one of the companies that is partnering with them. From your perspective, what will this do?
Really, really good question. And I will say at ADA that was a hot topic because it was getting a lot of coverage and a lot of questions overall. Really, when you think about ketones, and I know people living with diabetes, they generally have ketone monitors, but I also know that they're not used a lot because the CGM systems are so great. Ketones is a indicator that people aren't getting insulin into their body. It's an early indicator of that before they might obviously get high and go into DKA. So it's a really good safety feature potentially. One of the things that we are interested in particular is, and we hear about this a little bit, is infusion set failures. So if they have an occlusion or a kink and the insulin isn't getting into your body, there's a potential for ketones and elevation in ketones to be able to detect that earlier. So then people can change their set out earlier, but without sort of having a high blood glucose.
But like, how does it work? Would it be an indication on the insulin pump? Would it be an indication in the Libre app? It's something that is so new, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around what we'd see as the users.
Yeah, really good question. I will say that was really where the topic of conversation was happening with those healthcare professionals overall. And I don't think that, like, especially when we're partnering with Abbott, like, I don't think they have any of that information to share today, but that's essentially what they're working on right now as they gear up to sort of submit that to the FDA and get clearance. It's how does that look and how does that play out? Because on the other side of the coin, they want to make sure that they're not just adding more data for the sake of adding more data and actually might confuse people. So I know that our partners at Abbott are working really, really hard of making sure that then when they display this information to people with diabetes, that it's sort of something that they can act on appropriately. So there's going to be more news to come with that as we get further down the development of those systems being available commercially. Right now, the announcements are all around the agreements to integrate, not so much about getting to that. How does it look and how does it play out? So more news to come on that one.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's really interesting because obviously Dexcom's working on this as well. And who knows, in 10 years, these sensors could be monitoring. And this is me speculating. This is not Ben talking. These sensors could be, monitoring alcohol. They could be monitoring many other things in the body. It's really wild to think about. But ketones is the next one. You mentioned infusion sets. So let's jump there. You and I have talked for a long time, and I've shared with the listeners, my son, the one thing that he could do right now to improve his care is change his infusion sets every 3 days. He's 20. I don't understand the 20-year-old brain because this is not happening, and I can only nag him so much. I've stopped asking him about it. But you all have something new. It was approved for 3-day wear. My understanding is that the hope is to not launch commercially until it is approved for longer wear. Get us up to speed, please.
Yeah, so that set that you referred to is called our Steady Set infusion set. It was part of an acquisition we made a couple of years ago from Capillary Biomed. And you sort of said it with your son. Infusion sets they're really from a insulin pump standpoint, regardless of whether it's tubed or tubeless. That's probably it's just a big challenge that hasn't been worked on for decades, essentially. The way I think about it is we've made such great strides and improvements in our AID systems and Control-IQ+, but no matter how good the AID systems and the pumps are, if you're not getting insulin reliably into the body, they're actually not making a benefit. So we hear this a lot. What we're talking about with our infusion sets, and there's really 3 big areas that people share with us around their pain points. First and foremost, they want them to be easier to put on. The infusion sets today, they can be really great, but they can also be a challenge for a broad range of people. The Steady Set infusion set is essentially a 2-step inserter, meaning you take off the adhesive, you put it on your body, and you press down on it, and it inserts it automatically into your body. So if the best thing I can explain in terms of how close that is looking at the CGM companies right now, meaning Dexcom and Abbott. They literally, you put them on, you press the button, and they're up and running. So that's where we're headed in terms of our infusion sets. So that's the first thing. The second thing is they want them to be reliable once you've got them on your body. And what I mean by reliable is you don't want to get kinks and occlusions overall. And so this is where we talk about technology advancements in infusion sets. Essentially, like historically for decades, they've either been steel or they've either been Teflon. And so the steel ones are great because they don't kink, but then when they're in your body, they don't kink. They don't have any flexibility, which means they can be a little bit stiff. And on the opposite side, the Teflon ones, they're softer, but they can kink because they're softer when they're going into the body. So the Steady Set cannula is actually the best of those both worlds. It's actually got an inner steel, and it's a steel coil, which is, if you can imagine, the closest thing I can relate it to is like a slinky, as in it's a coiled slinky, which means that it's actually strong enough to be able to not bend one upon insertion, but then it is flexible when it's underneath the skin, which actually makes it really, really comfortable and non-irritable when it's underneath your skin. But then it's also wrapped around by a Teflon cannula as well. And like I said, that gives you the best of both worlds. The design of that, like I said, is to be kink resistant, to avoid those failures upon insertion. and then also to be less irritable when it's underneath your skin. So then it's something that's not bothering the body as well. And with that technology, it's also designed to be the third benefit that people are looking for is being able to have them last longer.
Yeah.
So that extended wear piece to be able to get you to ideally up to 7 days with our set. That means halving the amount of infusion sets that you get. The greatest benefit about insulin pumps is essentially you're just dramatically reducing the amount of times you have to put your insulin in your body every 3 days versus multiple times a day for injections. And our goal is to halve that with the steady set infusion set.
I like everything about that, Ben.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I didn't realize the makeup, like the slinky coil. That's because the steel canyon, everybody who uses them really likes them, but it's so hard. People don't use them because they can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, we're really excited about that set. And our customers are sort of saying the same. They keep on asking for it today, essentially.
Well, you know what I'm going to ask, right? I mean, I know you never give me timelines, and that's okay. But this is an approved product. It's approved for 3 days. So fingers crossed, maybe not too much longer. Right back to our conversation. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Omnipod. Did you know all the sounds used to make that song come from a site change with the Omnipod 5 automated insulin delivery system? Pretty cool, huh? With Omnipod 5, pump site changes are simple. The pod lasts up to 3 days, 72 hours, and to change it, you just fill up the pod with insulin, place it on your body, tap a few buttons in the Omnipod 5 app, and you're ready to go. There's no tubing to prime like with traditional insulin pumps, and it's virtually pain-free. So you never have to see or handle the insertion needle. Want to try Omnipod 5 for yourself? Request a free Omnipod 5 starter kit today by visiting omnipod.com/diabetesconnections. Terms and conditions apply. Eligibility may vary.
Did you hear the pod drop?
Yeah, exactly right. So the 3-day set was designed to sort of speed up the process of eventually getting to that extended wear set because it's the same technology of the 3-day set and the extended wear set. We just got approval for the 3-day, and then that's combining it with the clinical study results, looking at the 7-day, and we'll be utilizing both of those pieces as part of a submission to the FDA. So yes, you're asking for timelines. No, I can't give them because of all the uncertainty is in terms of how long it takes when we provide it to the FDA and in terms of that. So, but we'll definitely keep you updated as we get further along the road on that one.
Well, we certainly look forward to that. Okay, I have to ask you about Control IQ. And this is personal, Ben, because he's I love him dearly. He has not updated to Control IQ Plus.
Yep.
Because he doesn't see that it will change things that much for him. He's not a person who uses an extended bolus. He hasn't, the pump's working fine for him. I know you're all always working to improve things. Any future updates coming to Control IQ, more aggressive or lowering targets or anything like that?
Great question. I would say he should update to Control IQ Plus. So broadly speaking, Control IQ to Control IQ Plus, the biggest thing is the broadening of indications. So it's down to 2+ in type 1 diabetes, and now it's got the type 2 indication for people 18 and over. So you're right, that's not really a benefit to your son. But the one thing he might be interested in is the temp basal rate. That we added that as part of Control IQ, and this is the first and only system that's now got it. That's really good for things like exercise, as an example, and just those daily changes, those temporary changes in people's insulin needs. It's a really easy setting to turn on, and for a period of time, it reverts back to their system. So I think you'd probably have some value in that one. Looking towards the future, yes, things like lower targets and other improvements. Really what we're working on is what we call and what the industry calls our fully closed loop system. What that means, and I think that's the most exciting and the biggest benefit for the majority of people with diabetes, is then you can move away from any form of a meal announcement. And when we say fully closed loop, during regular use, the people that are using the system don't have to interact with it. It's going to give them 100% of their insulin delivery needs, or that's the design of it. So then they just less and less things that they have to think about when they're managing their diabetes. We're going to ideally let the system take care of that. So that's really what we're working on overall. moving towards that, what we call the holy grail of AID. That's our goal to try and get there and deliver that one.
I love it. And yeah, there's so many useful things in the Control IQ Plus update. I just got a kid who's like, as little as possible, and that's fine with him for now. So, but I've heard really good feedback from people who are using the system to its fullest, which I wish
you know what? I actually really love to hear that, because with Control IQ Plus, we see it all the time and we hear it all the time. It meets people where they are. So you can interact with it minimally. You can interact with it a lot and maximally, and you get great outcomes no matter what. That's what we love about Control IQ.
Yeah, I really think it's incredible to think about all of these systems. My son was diagnosed at 2, and it was a very different world in 2006.
Yeah.
So it's fun to kind of see where we have been. He just told me the other day he doesn't remember life before CGM, which is funny because he was 9 when he got a CGM. So, I mean, he's like, I don't know. How did we do it before then? I was like, a lot of pokes.
I know. And that's the exciting thing about when we go to ADA. Every year, it just seems like there's just more technology that's making more progression. And like you said, we're sort of on the cusp of this, of continuous ketone monitoring, but like we don't even know what that's going to play out. But every single year there's improvements across the industry, and it just makes people's management of their diabetes that much easier.
Yeah. Hey, let's talk about Mobi. I'm seeing this more and more people. Wasn't somebody like on Jimmy Fallon with it recently? Was it Estee Haim?
I'm glad you saw that. Estee Haim was on there, and she was wearing it on her leg, and yeah, I saw the YouTube video. I was so excited to see sort of that out in the mainstream.
Yeah, that was great. I just remember, seeing it for the first time. It's so tiny. Is there anything you want to share about Mobi for right now? I have a couple of questions, but about future, but I just make sure I don't miss anything.
Yeah, we're really happy with the way Mobi's going. I will just say it's been really exciting, and we're sort of in the early days of it yet, and we get lots and lots of requests about things to add and more features. But we're so excited because we've seen that it has T-Slim as a pump. It has so many of the great features, and they've both got Control IQ Plus on that one. But we're actually also seeing it's meeting the needs of different types of people. We actually continue to hear that with T-Slim, people actually want an all-in-one system, and they're able to get that with T-Slim. But obviously, we also hear with Mobi, just the size and the being able to use their personal phone on that is also great as well. So we're really happy with the way it's going right now.
Okay, so coming out of ADA, one of the headlines was every company is working on a patch pump, and they kind of threw Mobi in there. Can you talk a little bit about Mobi and then the patch pump that I think of? I guess it's Sigi that you all are working on.
Yeah, so great question. And one of the questions that we get from that is what's the difference between the tubeless Mobi that people talk about and the Sigi patch pump? So what I can share is when we talk about the tubeless option for Mobi, all that is a new infusion set. Mobi is what we call the only kind of convertible or flexible pump in the market today, because you can wear it with all the existing infusion sets and tubing lengths, but you've got that short 5-inch version, which is what we saw on the Jimmy Fallon video. And she was wearing it with the 5-inch set and the adhesive sleeve, so you can wear it on body. When you talk about the tubeless variety, essentially that's an infusion set that is completely tubeless. So all it is, it's using the Mobi pump, but it actually has a modified cartridge that then slides into a tubeless infusion set. So it kind of looks like the adhesive sleeve, but it's got a cannula in there, and the insulin gets delivered straight into the cannula via that cartridge. What that means is when we make it available and when we get approval, ideally for that infusion set, that any existing Mobi user can then benefit for having a truly tubeless option when they want. So all these other companies that are working on new patch or tubeless pumps, they're pumps and pieces of hardware. This is just an accessory to the Mobi that's available today, because we know that, yes, there's so many people using tubed infusion sets, but they also would like to use a tubeless sort of option as well. And we're really excited because this is a faster way for us to get there. And it also gives people the option to switch between the two of them, because they'll be able to use a tubeless, and in the same day, they'll be able to change it to use their tubed infusion set as well. Because one of the drawbacks we hear from tubeless pumps is every 3 days, they've got to make a decision on where they want to wear it. And if they're working out one day and then they've got a cocktail dinner the other day, they've got to think through all of those different scenarios and put it where they have, and they got to make a choice. With this, not only you can change it, you can also change it within a day because it's easily able to be taken off and put back on as well. So that's the tubeless version of our infusion set. When you think about Siggy, which is our purely tubeless set, that is literally a tubeless pump. It's designed to be only tubeless. So then if you think about our folio, we have the T-Slim X2 with a all-in-one system, Mobi, which has then both tubed and tubeless varieties. And then Siggy is for those people that only want a tubeless option, that'll be available to them as well.
Last I saw Siggy, and it's been a while, it was, unlike Omnipod, it was a reusable patch pump. Right?
Correct.
Parts of it you use again, parts of it you throw away. It's rechargeable, still the same hardware?
Yeah. So essentially, when you think about our ecosystem of pumps, we think that sort of that durable and reusable piece is really important for a couple of reasons. It's obviously good for the environment, and really these things like batteries, Bluetooth chips, they're all designed to be used for many, many years. So we think it's just it's an easier setup and an easier thing for our customers to be able to use it for. And then the other thing that we think is really important, and this is where infusion sets stand, as in you can always take them off for temporary periods of time. You don't have to wear them all the time. The best example is if people want to go into a sauna and a hot tub, if you've got the pump stuck on you, you can't go in there because you've got the insulin that you can't heat up. Whereas with our products, you can take it off, have your fun, and then put it back on for a period of time. So that's what our tubeless pump will be designed to do. It will be something you can detach for a short period of time as well, which is where the non-disposable piece of thing in terms of the pump gets you. You don't have to be stuck with that for 3 days.
So you're talking about the Siggy would be, you can slide it off, slide it on.
You'll be able to take it off.
Huh,
correct.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right. So then as we're talking portfolio, is the X3 still out there?
So that's something that we're still working on and evaluating. I don't have any updates on that one today, but yeah, that's something that we're always keeping an eye on and definitely passionate about.
Remind me, what's different about the X3?
Yeah, it's really, there's some updated software and hardware components around that. That's essentially it. It'll be the same form factor because, like I said, is people see a lot of value in having a pump that holds 300 units and essentially has a screen on the system, but it is a refreshed version of hardware elements and then also some of the software and the sort of the components underneath the pump as well.
Great. All right, let's move over to listener questions.
Sure.
Bethany wanted to know, can they please make a follow type app for caregivers? She says specifically, it's hard to guide daycare and treatment decisions when I can't tell what the pump has already done. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that question up because I can actually say that, yes, we've heard that. And yes, that's something that we're working on. We actually acquired a company called Sugarmate a few years ago now. And what they do is essentially they use the CGM data and they provide follow functionality and some really good unique features. Like they have the ability for the app to text people's phone numbers if they're hitting certain thresholds. And they also provide a lot of data inside of that. So using that data for more analytics. So that's a company that Tandem acquired. And we are essentially working on that to be our follow or our caregiver solution. Ideally, long-term, we'll be able to add our insulin data on that. So people will be able to not just get CGM data, but also be able to get insulin data. So yeah, we're working on that and we're hoping to bring that out pretty soon.
Great. Peter wanted to know, will Tandem pumps connect with Eversense CGMs soon? Eversense is out here making deals.
Yeah, it's another good question. And it's another question that sort of came up over the past weekend at ADA. I think really what I would say is what we look at is overall is if there's sort of a great need and a great ask of people looking to, use the CGM that they want to use and then be able to get Control IQ Plus integrated with that. We'll definitely look closely at that. I think the only thing that I'll say is what I can point to in terms of announcements. Like I said, I think we talked about this just at the beginning of the interview is that the ketone monitoring in Abbott, that's the sort of our near-term announcement, but we're absolutely always looking at different CGM partnerships if that is going to bring value to people who use our pumps.
Great. Brian wanted to know if you are possibly working with Tide Pool. He says, I think that was a conversation at one point.
Yeah. For the Tide Pool, do you know if it's Tide Pool, the loop, the algorithm
I'm
piece?
sure he means Tide Pool loop.
Okay. I wouldn't say there's any firm plans to integrate with any other AID algorithms today. Like I said, is Control IQ. We're really, really happy with how that works for people, and we're really focused on that fully closed loop algorithm. Not to say we will never do that, but it's right now we don't have any firm plans.
Because I would assume, and I'm not familiar with Tidepool from a downloadable point of view, but is Tandem compatible with sharing data with Tidepool?
With the data, they can actually upload their data.
Yeah.
On t:slim X2, they can connect and they can upload their data and see their pump data in Tidepool as it stands today.
Great. And Brian also wanted to know, are they planning on giving the Mobi app more functionality for pausing insulin? A hard timer of 15 minutes seems silly, as do the multiple screens you have to confirm.
Yes, that is something we were working on. So with the t:slim X2, you can actually suspend the insulin delivery. There is a timer built into that one. We're actually working on bringing that into our next release or the next 2 releases with Mobi. So yes, we hear that feedback, especially the people who have moved from t:slim X2 to Mobi. They kind of miss that feature. So yes, we will be bringing that to Mobi.
Tammy, can they please update the Mobi Vibrate to not be so horribly loud?
Yes, I will say alerts and alarms in general, especially with the advent of Control IQ Plus, some of those things have been around for many, many years. So we hear feedback around alerts and alarms fatigue, be it audible or vibrate. We are actually working on making reductions to those and seeing if we can make improvements to those overall. So that's, again, yes, something that we're working on.
All right. Maddie asks, can you please bring exercise mode timer to Mobi? It's available for some time for t:slim.
Yep. There's like the suspend timer. The exercise timer, again, is something that we are working on, and we will be bringing it to Mobi, one of the near-term releases that we've got. Yes, we hear that a lot.
All right. And she also wanted to know about clearing out alarms, making that easier on Mobi.
On Mobi, okay.
And I'll read the question because I don't use it. We don't use it. Right now, you have to hit the button 3 times within seconds of the alarm going off to silence, but I have to find the pump first. It can be hard to get to it in time.
Oh, I think she's referring to our snooze feature that we have on the pump. So you can actually press the pump button to snooze it. So I haven't heard that one before, being it's not sort of flexible enough to give you a bit of a time. So I will look into that one.
Excellent.
That's an interesting suggestion.
And she also wanted to know the low predicted alarm. And I'm going to read the quote here. I have gotten this alarm in the dumbest scenarios. After being low for like 10 minutes, after coming up from a low, or after silencing a low alarm. I wonder if this is a Dexcom alarm or a Mobi alarm.
That is a Control IQ predictive low alarm.
Got it.
So I can say that because I know that's not the first time I've heard that feedback. I will say again, this is all part of our sort of project to look at improving alerts and alarms overall. That we want them to be smarter and more contextual. So then when people do receive them, they actually do what they're supposed to do, is give people sort of a notification to sort of check the system and take action if they need to.
Got it. All right. So I do have a question from my son. He says he has a very good friend who also has diabetes and also uses the t:slim X2. And they say both of them, sometimes when they're using the pump, the screen just goes dark. He said the pump's not turning off. There's no technical problem. Nothing is wrong. But he's like maybe he's bolusing for a meal and the screen goes dark. Is he just waiting too long? Is he being too slow?
Well, I mean, it could be because you've got a timeout. I think it's up to 2 minutes you can time where the team, but you can make it shorter. There is actually also, if you press the T logo on the screen itself, if you press it 3 times, it actually locks the screen. That might be it. That's a design feature that's built in. It's a fast way to lock the screen that I just found out about because I kept on pressing things and I thought I was doing something wrong. So maybe that's it.
I'll let him know and I'll have him reach out to you so he can tell you his troubles. Because they say he was just over the other day and they said it happens to both of them. I was saying, I'm talking to t:slim. I said, I was talking to Tandem. Do you guys have any questions? And they were like, actually, we do, which I was surprised at. So
it's a very
thank
technical
you for that.
question. Yeah.
Oh boy, Ben. I got to tell you, it's a different world than it was when he was 6 years old and I was pressing all the buttons on the pump.
Yeah.
Different world. But I'm thankful that we have automated systems.
Yeah, me too.
Those were all my questions from listeners. But I would want to ask you, Ben, and I don't know, this is kind of I feel like this is a bit of a setup question, but a nice question. When I look at kids wearing the Mobi, It's so nice to have that option of something smaller. I know a lot of adults like it too. My son wants to stay with the T-Slim. He just likes the form factor. He likes pressing buttons on the pump. He doesn't want to use his phone for it. Great, wonderful. It's good to have options. But I look back and I think about like how nice it is to have that flexibility. Again, very softball question, but I am curious, like, what do you all hear from feedback? This product hasn't been out for all that long.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that we're most excited about is, and I can tell you that this was I think when we first got clearance, you asked me this question is, what's the difference between Mobi and T-Slim? And it wasn't until you sort of picked it up and felt it, you saw the size difference. And that's the first thing that people say. The thing that excites us most of all is that it's appealing to a different set of people overall. So they get all of the great benefits of T-Slim, like the algorithm, like the CGM integrations, but then it's the form factor differences that they can then further personalize that their diabetes than they couldn't just with the T-Slim X2. You kind of touched on it. We definitely see a younger group of people using Mobi than they do because they obviously don't need as much insulin and that, the smaller bodies means that it's something that's so lightweight is great to wear on their body. And then being able to use the mobile app is another thing that they like. But like you said, on the other side of the coin is there's some people that just want pump to be a pump and not have their phone with them and have to carry it around with them. And we hear that as well. So that's what we're actually really excited about because it's not just like this high crossover of people that would be happy on both systems. We're seeing sort of this spread of types of users being able to use T-Slim happily or Mobi happily as well. So it's really exciting to see.
I did mean to ask you this. Can people use U200 insulin in the Mobi?
They cannot. So right now it's U100 is the only insulin approved for only insulin system approved for any insulin pump today. We do get that question as well, but it's a very much a regulatory question in terms of how do we show that it's safe to use and effective to use in those systems. So it's a partnership with the FDA. It's a partnership with the producers of the insulin to see if there's one day in the future that we might be able to get those indications. I will say we are actually working on the faster acting insulins as well. So it's not just the insulins today. There'll be more insulins that we plan on making compatible with our systems over time.
And as you listen, if you're not familiar, U200 is basically double the insulin in the same liquid. So I was thinking it might come in handy because the Mobi has a smaller cartridge. But there you go. We'll revisit that.
I would just say I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate actually you being a sort of a connection to the community of people with diabetes. It's great to hear this feedback. Like we hear it on our social channels, we hear it from people, but it's also great to sort of have you being able to sort of ask the questions and us being able to respond and you be able to share sort of these news over time. So thanks for that. Thanks for all you do.
That is something that I didn't realize how much I would enjoy when I started this show. Bringing these questions to folks like you is really, really amazing. Thank you for joining me and answering all of those questions that I brought you. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks, Ben.
Yep. Thanks, Stacey. I always enjoy it.
I will link up more information about the Tandem studies, other things that Ben shared. Just head over to diabetes-connections.com and click on the episode homepage for this one. And he really did try to answer all the questions you posed. If you sent me a question and didn't hear it answered on this episode, keep an eye out for an email from me because Ben and I talked offline about a couple of things. Some of the questions might not have been clear or it's not his department, but he really wants to get that information out. So I'm going to reach out to a couple of you who you didn't hear your question, but we've got some information for you. So sit tight. And if you don't hear from me, Stacey at diabetes-connections.com. All right. Hope to see a lot of you at Friends for Life next week. If you're going to be there, drop me a line. It's always a fast-paced conference and it is nonstop, but there is some time in there to be social. So definitely come by my booth, say hi, tell me what you want to hear on the podcast, learn more about Mom's Night Out, and let's just have a good time together. Thanks to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here soon. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.